One of the big issues too is again working. We have they say 12 million illegal aliens that are working out there. Some of them, people say they take the jobs away from people in the United States. Some people say, well, if they wasn't doing their jobs, nobody would do their jobs, and these people are okay. So I always like to hear what your view is on the illegal alien and the legalized alien. You know, do you have any opinions on that?
Well, I think legal aliens are great. People who come legally to this country, want to become Americans, come through the process the proper way, like most of our ancestors did. That's great. I mean, it gives the United States literally some new blood and some enthusiasm. I think it's a great thing. Illegal immigration, or illegal anything for that matter, I'm opposed to. And I think the people who want to allow illegal immigration to flourish like to blur the lines between the people who follow the law and the people who don't. So I want to make it very clear. I'm only talking about illegal immigration. With regards to jobs, you know, the unemployment rate in this country is 5% for the general, for everyone. You know what the unemployment rate is for veterans? It's 10%. So think about this. You have a guy joins the Army, 18, 19, does his 4 years, maybe he does a tour in Afghanistan or Iraq or somewhere around the world, serves his country. He comes back, 22, 23-year-old kid. If he was in the infantry, his skills don't really translate into the private sector. If he was in artillery, the most important and dangerous jobs. So what's he going to do? He wants to get an entry-level job as a carpenter, a mason, a plumber, and these jobs are being gobbled up by people here in the country illegally. So that veteran who did everything right and served his country, who in a previous generation would have come home, learned a trade, probably in 10 years or so, started his own business, employed a new person, he's shut out. And GI Bill's great, but you know, if he's 22, 23, and he wants to go to college, what's he going to do for those 4 years? He's got to earn some money. He's not a kid. And that's one specific area where I know for a fact illegal immigrants are causing high unemployment rate among our fellow veterans. I spoke with a gentleman who runs a not-for-profit organization. They take homeless people and they train them and they try to get them full-time jobs.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
It's a great idea. It's all American. But he can't compete. He has these people, he gets them off the street, he gives them some training, and then they go in to apply for jobs, and they can't get them because employers want to pay off the books to illegals and pay them less than minimum wage. So you have these people who are trying to do the right thing and get themselves together, and they're being blocked. And that's an economic problem, but it's also a moral problem. People who do the right thing should not be punished.
Right.
And people who do the wrong thing, who come into the country illegally, should not be rewarded. And that's exactly what's going on.
Right. And they have these bills that they want to beef up the immigration laws and ways to get people out of the country. I was a police officer. I don't know how many times we brought these people in. And the best story was that it was during the 80s when Reagan was in, they had the hostages for Iran.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So we brought 18 people in. So the guy says, just take my name and address and let me go because that's the way it's supposed to be. So I call him immigration. He says, we're only taking Iranians. Let all these people out. So I let all these people out. And then we have them in the police cars and in the middle of the police cars going up. So that was pretty crazy. And then I called and he had a card for the Social Security card, welfare card. Right. So I called up the lady and says, well, if there wasn't on welfare, I wouldn't have a job. And that was a long time ago, but it's almost the same type of deal.
Right.
They can get medical benefits, they can get, all this stuff.
Go to school, talk about your school taxes, go to school.
Right.
That's a big problem.
Yeah, and that's another thing. They could put whole families in houses, and they can go to the school district and they get in it. And really, I haven't seen a school district yet that questions these people who are coming in.
I don't think they can. I think the law is such that they cannot question the student about their status, and that's a problem. There are laws on the books that, if properly enforced, could fix this problem. In 1986, we said, okay, let's have an amnesty. We'll let 3 million people in or so, and we'll fix the problem going forward. And we passed laws that should have, if properly enforced, dealt with the problem.
Right.
But what we did was we gave them a one-time amnesty, and people in other countries who wanted to come here. I don't blame them for wanting to come here. I thank God every day that I was born in this great country. But you have to obey the laws. But what we did was we encouraged people to come here, stay long enough, plant roots deep enough, and eventually the American people will give up and they'll give a one-time amnesty again, which is another thing that doesn't make sense.
Well, these people usually don't pay taxes. So that's another thing. Now they want to get part of Social Security. They want to. So, listen, that's a great thing. Now, let's. This is pretty off the wall, but you know, in order to get an education, now I'm a really tax activist in the schools and get you the best for your buck. Okay. Now, what do you think about college? Now, when I came out of the service, we had a program. We got money from the veterans to go to school, which is really good. If you get in office, what are you going to do to help the veterans or help even in the regular colleges?
Well, I have an idea that I'm working on, that I'm advancing, that I think is the perfect solution for veterans education. This is what I believe, Ed. I think if you join the military, you serve honorably, you achieve the rank of NCO, non-commissioned officer, which means you're a leader of other soldiers, Marines, sailors, what have you. It means you've gone through boot camp. You've learned your military occupational specialty, whether it's driving a truck, infantry, so you've gone to some formal schooling there. And then as an NCO, you are leading and responsible for other people at 19, 20, 21 years old. That is experience that is so unbelievably valuable. The government should recognize it. And my program says this: you go in the Army, you achieve the rank of NCO. When you get out, we're going to say that you have the equivalent of 60 college credits. So then you get out of the military at 22, 23. Right. But we're going to honor and really recognize the fact that the 21st century Army and military is very advanced, and that, you know, if you're a sergeant, you're responsible for your guys during the working day. But if he gets in trouble on a Saturday out in town, you're called before the commanding officer. You say, what is your guy doing on Saturday afternoon getting in trouble? I mean, that is the ultimate responsibility. That is the ultimate managerial training, and that should be recognized, and college credit should be awarded. So instead of getting out of the Army at 22, 23, staring at 4 years of tuition bills, you have 60 credits. Right. You're halfway there. More people will go to college. It doesn't cost anybody any money. There's no tax dollars going to it. It's just recognizing the fact that our military training and service and the leadership that you learn in the military is as valuable as sitting in a junior college classroom. Right. And that's not a knock on junior college in any way. It's just a recognition that military service and the kind of leadership and the overwhelming 24-hour day responsibility required of military leaders should be rewarded.
Right. That's great, because that'll hook right into coming home to find a job or find a school, you know, and then to go from there.
Staring at 4 years of college and 4 years of tuition bill can be intimidating. Staring at 2 years of tuition bills and 2 years of college with the government, with the GI Bill to help you with that, that's much more manageable. And that's the goal. More people to college, more veterans to college.
So let me understand this now. You're running for this position, but you have a primary to run first.
Yep.
So how many people do you have to is in the primary?
I think it's me and one other gentleman have actually filed our papers. Okay. People always talk about running, but if you haven't filed your papers with the Federal Election Commission, you're not really a candidate. You
can talk about all you want. Do they still have time to do that?
They still have some time to actually do it, but can you run a real campaign with? There's less than 200 days, I think, till the general election.
Oh, okay.
So it's a grueling process, and just to get the pieces in place to get rolling, to get your infrastructure in place, takes months. So I don't think anybody could get in at this late date. Right now, the Republican race is a two-horse race. I think competition is great. America was built on competition. Competition brings out the best in everybody. And I think it's good for our party, the Republican Party, that we do have a couple of people going at it.
Right, and I think the Republican Party is getting a bad name for whatever reason. You know, what's wrong with tax cuts? What's wrong with cutting the spending on government?
You know what I think? You know what I think one problem is? Over the last 10 years, especially at the federal level, Republicans have called for tax cuts, but they haven't, and they may have called for spending cuts, but they haven't halted spending. Tax cuts have to be accompanied by spending cuts, otherwise you have deficits, which are eventually going to have to be paid back. That hurts the economy, and eventually you're going to have to pay the
Well, you have
tax
a president that's a Republican, and you got the Congress that's Democratic, so that makes it a little tough. But sometimes it's good like that, in checks and balances. But
I agree. But for 7 years, we had a Republican president and a Republican Congress, and they spent like drunken sailors. No offense to sailors. We have two branches of the service present here. We don't have any sailors here, but that was the problem. I think that's a big part of the reason they got thrown out in 2006 and lost power.
Okay.
Republicans have to be the party of fiscal responsibility. If we don't do it, we cannot count on the other party to do it.
Okay. Listen, I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
Listen, it's great. We had a lot of conversation, a lot of great topics, and I hope you do well.
Thanks.
And good luck.
Let's do it again.